My name is Jeremy Walton, and today we're talking about FilmConvert. Let's go! We live in a digital age, and in the filmmaking business, I'm sure you've heard the term film look plenty of times. We've moved away from film, but we're always striving to capture that look with our digital cameras, whether that's in camera with filters or in post with software. If you've watched some of my videos, you may have heard me mention FilmConvert, and I thought now would be a good time to actually dive into how I use it. I'm gonna go over the features that I love, my basic workflow with a few examples. So let's not waste any more time and get started. If you ever wanted to get that film look, let me introduce you to FilmConvert. Here's their website, and there's a lot of info here, from reviews to tutorials and examples to check out. But let's scroll up to camera profiles, film grain, and learn more. I want to start here because, let's face it, this is the stuff people want to know. You can learn about their film grain process, and if you scroll down, here's their film stock examples. You have their motion color negative, black and white to photographic color transparency, with descriptions of the film stock. That's a nice touch. This is the fun part when you get FilmConvert. I love trying out and tweaking profiles when working on different projects, and I will get into that in a minute. I just want to cover a few more things. Besides creating the film look, there is one feature that really stands out and is extremely helpful when grading your footage. Under camera profiles, click on Do we support your camera? Now choose your camera profile. You can see there's an extensive list of cameras, and if you don't see your camera, you can fill out the camera request form. Now you might be asking, what is this? Well, I'm glad you asked, because I'm gonna tell you. As filmmakers, we don't live in the world of, this is my one and only camera that I'll ever use in every situation, no matter what. You might be using an iPhone on occasion, or something like a GoPro or an Osmo Pocket. Then you might be using a DSLR or a mirrorless camera as your A camera, or a B camera if you own a Red or an Alexa. What about stock footage? There's endless possibilities of why you might be mixing cameras, and FilmConvert can help. Let's say you shot in a log profile and you downloaded that camera's log to Rec 709 LUT. Maybe you bought a LUT to slap over the top and you love it, but now you have this other camera where that LUT doesn't look so good, or you have some stock footage shot in a profile you've never used before. This can get confusing and can take forever to match your footage. In FilmConvert, you can create the look you want, apply it to all your footage, and all you really have to do is change the camera profiles. This makes matching cameras so much easier and definitely is a time saver. I'll show you an example of this, but if you're still not sure about FilmConvert, they do offer a free trial option, which if you really want to see how it works and how it affects your footage, there really is no excuse. Once you download FilmConvert, follow the instructions. It's pretty simple. If you have any trouble, contact support and they'll be happy to help. Now let's jump into Premiere Pro and take a look at some footage. Right now you can see I have my project set up. My bins are color coded and I have my footage from my GH5, a drone, and my iPhone, which are already in my timeline. Just a side note, I'm gonna keep this as simple as I can for first-time users. A lot of what I do, you can easily have shortcuts for, and my workflow does consist of a dual monitor setup. But to make things easy, I'll just use the default settings. The next thing you wanna do is create an adjustment layer. Click on New Item, and if everything looks good, hit OK. Now drag this onto the timeline and extend it over your entire sequence. You'll need 2 adjustment layers, so on a Mac, hit Option and drag up. Super easy. The top layer is where you'll have FilmConvert, and the bottom layer is where you'll have Premiere's Lumetri color. Here's where shortcuts can help, but I'm going to keep it simple. What I like to do is click on Effects and type in FilmConvert. Now just drag and drop. We can do the same thing for Lumetri. Type it in, then drag and drop. It's also a good idea to rename your layers. Right click, rename, and we'll call this Color Grade. Do the same thing for the bottom layer. Right click, rename, and call it Color Correction. Are you still with me? Good. The reason I have 2 adjustment layers is because I always like to have my original clips available to me, then a layer with my color correction, and then a layer with my grade. This keeps everything uniform and I know exactly where to go depending on what I'm trying to affect. Some people like to grade within the clip, which is fine, but whatever you decide to do, I recommend sticking with that workflow. Switching it up can definitely cause you problems down the line. So right now, this really isn't looking the best, but you'll see how we can change that. Hop into your color tab. Remember, this is the default setup. I usually have my scopes open on a second monitor, so I'm going to drag that over and have the effects tab open. If you click on your color grade, you can see FilmConvert and a bunch of options. Let's first start with camera settings and source camera. This is the GH5 footage, so we'll find Panasonic, GH5, then scroll through all the available profiles. For me, it was Vlog-L. This is a nice feature and what's going to help you match your cameras. So when you get the software, just download the camera profiles you want so you don't need them all. For the next step, let's jump down to film settings. Here's all your film stocks, and you can see different stocks give you a different look. I think I'm gonna go with one of the Fujichrome profiles. Below that, you can go from 8mm all the way to 35mm full frame. You can adjust your softness, and two big options that can dial in your look is film color and film curve. If we dial back the color and curve and you hide the grade layer, you're basically looking at your log footage. So you have a lot of options to play with. You also have a grain adjustment. You can add a bunch or have none at all. For right now, let's go to 0 because you can always add grain at the end. Then there's color correction, which you can control your saturation, color wheels if you want to cool off your shadows or warm up your highlights, or do whatever funky thing you want to do. If I click on our second layer, that pulls up Lumetri, and I'm sure we're all familiar with this panel. And we can change contrast, highlights, and we also have our curves and color wheels as well. I really don't want to get into the actual color correction and grading process. That can take some time, and I really want to stick with FilmConvert, but let me go over a few things. Like I said, I'm pretty comfortable using Lumetri to do my color correction. It's fast and simple. That workflow may be changing, but I'll get into that towards the end. For me, FilmConvert is creating my look. So besides the settings I talked about, my saturation and white balance tend to live in that layer, so it's uniform across my entire sequence. As for the color correction, that can change from clip to clip, so I like to keep the two separate. You don't have to work that way, that just makes sense to me, and it's something I like to do. A couple of tips when starting out is to set film color and film curve to about 70. At times I've gone to 80, sometimes 60, but 70 seems to be where I'm at most of the time. This really is an example of testing and experimenting to see what you like. You also don't want your grade and your color correction to be fighting each other. Once you figure that out, the next time will be that much faster. Then you can save that LUT in camera to have while you're shooting. So with the magic of editing, let me go through this footage, create a look, do some corrections, and we'll start there. Now, a few things have changed. I used my eraser tool and split my adjustment layers into 3 sections. I did this for my color correction because each clip had different adjustments. I created the look I wanted, then split the grade adjustment into 3 layers. The first section, which we talked about earlier, is the GH5. That's correct. But on the second clip, we have drone footage. So all I did was find DJI, Mavic Pro, and the Cinelike profile. I did the same thing for my third clip, which was Apple, iPhone, and the Filmic Pro log profile. Once that's done, FilmConvert basically did the rest. Now you have a more uniform look across your entire sequence because you created one look that FilmConvert was able to apply to each clip depending on the camera profile. Yes, there will be times where you're gonna have to make some adjustments and tweaks, but a lot of that depends on where you're shooting, time of day, wardrobe, actors, lenses, and the list goes on and on. But those decisions are up to you. This really is a fun process, and I feel like the grade is more of a personal touch. Maybe you want to go black and white with lots of grain, or you want to go bold with rich, vibrant colors. Who am I to say if that's right or wrong? So experiment and see what happens. There's a lot of LUTs out there that you can buy, but the ability to designate specific camera profiles isn't something everybody does. And one other thing to think about is, who are you buying from? Is it a filmmaker who decided to create their own LUTs and next year won't be around? What about technical support? FilmConvert has a name in the game, and they're constantly trying to make improvements based on their customer needs. That's important to me when I'm looking to buy something. FilmConvert recently announced a nitrate, which will be adding some new features like advanced film grain control. This is something I'm looking forward to and will definitely add to my workflow. They also will be releasing Cinematch, which brings camera matching to a whole new level. Stay tuned for upcoming videos on both nitrate and Cinematch. If you want something simple and straightforward that can work with multiple cameras on multiple platforms, then you need to try FilmConvert. I know I just gave you a whole lot of info, but this is something I use all the time, and I wanted to share it with you. Hopefully it gave you a better understanding of what FilmConvert does and how it can simplify a process that could become overwhelming and time-consuming. Workflows will vary, but that's normal. Take what you learn and develop a workflow that works best for your needs. Well, there you have it, why I use FilmConvert. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hit that like button because there's definitely more on the way. Subscribe so you don't miss out. But until then, comment below and let me know if you plan on adding FilmConvert to your workflow. And as for this episode, it's a wrap.